Hello, and welcome to Message in the Middle with Marianne. We all know that life is hard, right? It's messy, it's unpredictable, but it can be wonderful all at the same time. My hope is that we can take a deep dive into self-development topics and explore life's lessons through book clubs, conversations, and interviews. And together, we can uncover the lessons that others have already learned to help us navigate this crazy, wonderful ride called life. Hello and welcome to Message in the Middle. I'm your host, Marianne, and joining me today is Alison Bladh. Alison is a registered, award-winning nutritional therapist, an esthetician, a health writer, and an author with over 35 years in the wellness space. Alison specializes in empowering women over 40 as they navigate menopause, perimenopause, or postmenopause with an approach that blends nutrition, health, mindset, and lifestyle strategies to promote optimal vitality. Alison, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
I love all the work you're doing in the space of women's health issues, specifically women over 40, but I am curious how you got there. The wellness category is so vast. What narrowed it down for you to target the menopause, perimenopause, that area of focus?
Yeah, very long story short, I had acne, very bad acne when I was a teenager. And that gave me my love of hormones. Because even at that young age, I started thinking, well, what is going on with my skin? What is going on? Is it something I'm eating? What am I doing? So I really started to research, even as a teenager, into what was happening. And that triggered off, because I saw a huge difference in my skin when I applied these things. And that triggered off my love of hormones. And I am actually an esthetician, a beauty therapist as well. So I initially started working with women's hormonal skin conditions. And then I attracted this huge client base of women in perimenopause and menopause, because unfortunately, they call it the second puberty, because you can suddenly develop acne again when you're in perimenopause. So that really attracted me to that group. Very soon came to realize that you needed the inside piece as well, the nutrition, the lifestyle. And that's when I went back to study nutritional science, to have the nutrition piece in there as well. But I also, it triggered me so much when I was growing up with my mother, all her female friends that were going through this, but nobody spoke about it. I didn't really kind of understand it so much then myself, when you're a teenager. But I remember my mother really suffering, but she just wouldn't talk about it. It was kind of the thing that every woman went through, but it was, just pull yourself together and get on with it. There certainly wasn't any support or any help. There still isn't really, is there? I think it depends where you live in the world.
Yes.
It is getting better, but there's so much more needed to be done. So, I've made it my mission to help as many women as possible live a fulfilling life. As we age as women, we're fantastic. Just because we have these symptoms, it doesn't mean to say you can't still have a wonderful life and really thrive.
I'm so impressed that when you were younger, you actually noticed or picked up on, or maybe she said something, but your mother, because I often talk to people, maybe it's just a US thing, but I often talk to people our age-ish, I'll say, and there was just no awareness when we were growing up. It wasn't something people talked about. We didn't even realize, I think, our mothers were going through this thing. I don't know that we even knew it was a thing until much later. So that's pretty cool that you knew. You had that awareness.
Yeah, she did actually, in fairness, my mother, because I remember she had with the hot flashes, I think you call them in the US, that she would kind of make a bit of a joke of it. She'd go, oh, I'm really hot. She'd be fanning herself. And I remember she had this array of supplements that she used to take that I used to ask her about. Oh, what's that for? What's that for? And they were all for some sort of symptom that she was suffering from. So I think it's really thanks to her, because she quite freely discussed it with me, how she felt.
Well, you were curious too, so that's important. I want to dive in a little bit on the nutrition side. We can talk about all the things. I definitely want to talk about some of the hormones too, but on the nutrition side, one of the biggest things that people talk about or some of the biggest things are the mood swings, the energy levels, the sleep patterns. Are there any foods specifically or nutrition advice specifically that you think target helping with those areas?
Yeah, nutrition is a big piece when it comes to those sort of symptoms you just mentioned, because, there is actually research to back this up, that certain foods can trigger symptoms like hot flashes. So, for example, the bottom line is, when you get older as a woman and you come into this phase of your life, you just need to look after yourself more. The things that you did when you were younger, the things that you could maybe get away with eating, are going to make you feel terrible. Even if you think you can, I can assure you it'll catch up with you. And, sugar. The majority of us do actually realise that high sugar diet is not beneficial for our overall health. But things like hot flashes, sleep issues, all of these can be related back to many things, but one in particular is a high sugar diet. So eating a lot of processed foods, packaged foods, things that aren't from nature, that we were supposed to eat as human beings, that are highly refined, lots of sugar, lots of unhealthy fats. They have an effect on our body. They cause inflammation, and they just basically make menopausal symptoms worse. So I try to say to my clients is, I understand it's not easy, because well, not everything, but a lot of foods come in packages, don't they, with like 10, 15, 20, 30 different ingredients. If you don't know what the ingredients is and you don't understand it, then you probably shouldn't be eating it. Try to think about eating whole foods, foods that when you look at it, you actually know what it is, like a piece of broccoli, a piece of fish, fruit, whatever, but really cutting back on the amount of sugar that you eat will really help with your menopausal symptoms. Because also you've got that big piece with blood sugar balance. If you're eating a diet high in refined carbohydrates, which is the majority of processed and ultra processed foods they're absorbed very quickly into the body, and they basically shoot your blood sugar up. And when you've got high blood sugar, your body produces a hormone called insulin, which enables your body to utilize the glucose. It kind of opens up the cells so you can take in the energy. But, if you've constantly got this high sugar, your body can become resistant to insulin. And as we age as women, and in perimenopause and menopause, we see higher amounts of women with insulin resistance. We need our hormones, and when we haven't got estrogen and progesterone, there's a lot of metabolic things that happen in the body. So sugar, that was a very long reply to your question. Cutting down on sugar is a big thing. And then introducing fiber, something that we don't tend to talk about, and we don't really eat enough fiber. Fiber's not very sexy, is it? It's kind of like, oh, fiber, what's that? But we need that as women to help with elimination, to help to detoxify our what we call used estrogens, used hormones, so our body can eliminate them. We don't want those hormones to be reabsorbed, because that can cause estrogen dominance and other problems, and make menopausal symptoms worse. There's actually some nutrients called phytoestrogens.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, phytoestrogens, again, there's quite a bit of research on these. It's basically plant estrogens. So it has a similar chemical structure to estrogen, but it isn't estrogen. But it's been shown to have a very beneficial effect on some menopausal symptoms like hot flushes, night sweats, etc. And they can be found in, a very good source of them is flax seeds, soya, a lot of fruits, a lot of berries contain phytoestrogens, because it's from plants. It's a plant estrogen. So, you can incorporate those into your diet quite easily.
Yeah.
But there's many. The main thing is really getting rid of the processed foods, the sugars, the damaged fats, and eating balance with protein, fat, healthy carbohydrates like fiber-rich carbohydrates. That will really help eliminate quite a lot of menopausal symptoms.
In this day and age where everybody is so busy, on the go, doing a million things, We both know if you don't plan for it, it can be harder to grab those things that are not processed and to get a good meal of whole foods. So I have two questions. One is sort of what's your go-to when you're on the run? And sure, and I'm not talking like grab an apple. I'm talking about like if you have to put a meal together, do you have a go-to? And then the second thing is around planning. Similarly, what do you say to women that don't want to spend all day Saturday or all day Sunday trying to plan their week to try to have things ready? How do you make that easier?
Yeah, I'm a true believer in making things easy and realistic. My go-to, what I have in my, because I don't have time to cook every evening. What I have in my fridge is, we do what we can. Nobody's perfect, but I tend to, for example, I'll roast a chicken. I'm a meat eater, so I eat animal products. So I'll roast a chicken, and then you have a piece of that, and I'll have that with I'll buy like a bag of salad leaves.
Just throw it in a bowl.
Yeah, throw it in a bowl. Chop up a few tomatoes, maybe sprinkle some like nuts on top of it, some seeds, some delicious fresh olive oil, and I'll have that with. Get the chicken out of the fridge, cut a piece of the chicken off, put that on a plate, and then you've got your salad there.
Yeah.
It literally takes like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But you have to roast the chicken, but that isn't that time consuming, really, is it? You can just put that in the oven. I do that as well with fish, have a piece of salmon, buy a big piece of salmon. And, the whole family eats like that. There's always something in my fridge that you can basically go and take out and eat immediately, and it'll give you a healthy meal. I'm a big fan of soups as well, making, especially in the winter. These soup makers that you can buy now are phenomenal. You just basically like throw everything in and just turn it on, and it produces this like vegetable soup. Or
you mean like a kit with all the stuff in it when you say makers, soup makers?
No, it's like a machine, like the
Oh, I don't think I know that machine.
No, I don't know what they'd be called in the US, but there's loads of it's like like you can buy like a bread making machine.
Yes.
This is specifically for soup,
like a crock pot or like a Instapot or something like that.
Similar.
Okay.
But it is they're sold for soup. So then you would, for example, if you're making vegetable soup, you take all the vegetables, whatever you like, chop them all up, put them in the soup maker and turn it on, and you can have it on, whether you want it very pureed or you want it a bit more like chunky. And soups are brilliant to have in the fridge to eat for lunch and all of those things. Another thing that I actually do with some of my clients is that clients that maybe don't like cooking or have never really cooked is one pan dinners. Again, like super simple.
Yeah.
You take your piece of protein, whether that is fish or chicken, or if you don't eat meat, it could be tofu or some soya protein. Put it in a baking tin, and then just chop up like a load of vegetables, put them around it, olive oil, herbs, salt and pepper, whatever, things you want in it, and in the oven for 20 minutes.
Yeah, easy.
And then you take that out, you've got a dinner for everybody. Yeah. So it really doesn't have to be difficult. And hard-boiled eggs are a great snack to have in the fridge, because you can just grab, and they're just like, there's so much nutrition in an egg.
And I think that shows examples of, you do have to plan a little bit, right? You have to buy those ingredients, and you might have to, think about it in the morning or on a weekend or whatever. But to your point, those were all great examples of sort of 10, 15 minutes prep time, and then throw it in the oven or throw it in the pot or whatever it is. And you have something that you likely can eat multiple times. So that's always a good thing. What do you think about people that are struggling with getting enough sleep? Do you have any feedback on that? Because that's a big one I hear. I mean, I hear it from everybody. I don't know if that's something you hear from all your clients. And we all know the things like go to bed on time and don't have screen time and don't eat just before bed. Have you learned any other magic?
Yeah, that is a big question. I think majority of ladies that I work with, not all of them, but a very high percentage of them do struggle with sleep.
Yeah.
Because estrogen is needed for quality sleep, progesterone. There's a lot of chemical imbalances going on there when our hormones decline. And I'm not saying it's easy, because it is tricky. What I find works best with clients is, and this is difficult because most people are addicted to their mobile devices. And I've done this with group programs of women, and after lengthy discussions, I've actually got, I think, majority of them to take their mobile phone out of the bedroom. Getting them people to turn it off, that's another, but to actually charge your phone in another room.
Yeah.
So you need to buy an alarm clock, which you can, they're not expensive, and I do that, I do practice what I preach, and it just sets a different tone to the bedroom. You're not tempted, particularly if you wake up in the early hours of the morning, which you can do when you're in menopause. What do? You reach for your phone and you start scrolling and scroll. And I mean, then you just might as well get up, because you're not going to be going back to sleep.
Absolutely.
So that is a good trick. And I've seen quite a few women's sleep improve by doing that. And then really thinking about what you're doing. Like, you've already said this, that before you go to bed, not looking at blue light, not spending hours in front of the television, really having a routine to calm down, doing some like breathing exercises. I've seen with a lot of clients that just reading a book before you go to bed, kind of telling your body that, okay, this is nighttime, we're going to relax now. It sets a different tone. Yeah. It tells your body a different story, but it isn't easy. That there isn't, unfortunately, I haven't found like one super miracle. I mean, a lot of women do find if they take hormone replacement therapy, that can really help, with sleep. But obviously you would need to go to a doctor and talk about that. But that I have seen has helped quite a few women.
It's so interesting to me. The more I talk to people in this space, I think the hormone replacement therapy is much more common outside of the US than it is in the US. I think it will be interesting to see as more and more people start talking about this, will it shift the other way? Hopefully, because it seems like it does do a lot of good for a lot of people or a lot of women, but I just, I don't think it's that common here. I think it's a little bit more difficult to get your hands on it here. I want to go back to the nutrition side. I should have asked you this because you alluded to it. Inflammation. So inflammation is definitely something, well, we know that inflammation can cause or contribute to lots of health problems. I think it also contributes to our symptoms in menopause and perimenopause. What would you say around food and nutrition that could help keep it away, keep the inflammation down? Do you have any advice in that space?
Yeah, inflammation's a big topic, because like you say, a lot of functional medicine doctors are now actually saying that inflammation really is the root cause of so many chronic diseases. And it's nutrition, it's lifestyle, there's many different factors that cause it. But in answer to your question, again, sugar, processed foods cause inflammation in the body. So that's, another good reason to reduce them. It's probably impossible to cut them out totally, but to reduce them as much as you can. Making sure that you're getting enough healthy fats. Your omega-3 oils, particularly from fatty fish, are very anti-inflammatory. And fats, healthy fats.
Yeah.
A lot of people are scared of the word fat. Think, if I eat fat, I'm going to put weight on, but that isn't true. It's the sort of fat that you eat, things like healthy fats like olive oil, your omega-3s, which you can get from fatty fish. You can also, if you don't eat animal products, you can get them from like algae sources, from marine sources, nuts and seed, good old-fashioned butter, full fat, good old-fashioned butter, ghee, all of these things are what we classify coconut oil as healthy fats, whereas a lot of fats, I know there's been a lot in Europe in the press about seed oils, and they're cause inflammation in the body. So you want to avoid these like highly processed oils that have been really heated up to extreme temperatures, which changes the chemical composition of them, and your body doesn't recognize them. So they can be a culprit in inflammation in the body. So fat is a key thing, particularly omega-3 for reduction of inflammation. And then phytonutrients, eating a rainbow of color, fruit and vegetables, all the beautiful like reds and yellows and greens. All of these colors have different phytonutrients in, which help with inflammation, amongst other things. When we look at research on diet for inflammation, it's about variety, trying to get the biggest variety of foods into your diet, whole foods, foods that you can see what it is. It just doesn't come in a packet.
Do you have a position on supplements? So if you're not somebody that, say, is great at eating the fatty fish or the nuts, maybe you have a nut allergy, what do you think about supplements?
Yeah, I use supplements with my clients, absolutely. I mean, supplements are a very useful tool to have if needed. Supplements can't, if you've got a bad diet or unhealthy diet, should I say, you can't out supplement. You can't think, oh, well, I eat all this processed food, but I'm going to have these supplements, so I'll be all right.
Yeah.
Really work like that. Supplements can be taken for deficiencies. You might be deficient in certain vitamins or minerals. They can be very helpful, but they're very individual. When I work with clients, we really look at their goals and what they want to achieve, maybe do some sort of testing to actually see if they need any supplements. And then it's down to the quality as well with supplements. It's very important that you get a high quality that actually has some of the nutrients in, because when you look at some of the cheaper brands, they don't really contain very much of the actual vitamin or mineral, that you want to be using. And I would just say to women as well, is just be mindful when you buy supplements, because in Europe, I don't know what it's like in the US, but in Europe now, there is a bit of a menopause revolution going on, and a lot of companies have jumped onto this, and they're producing everything that just said the word menopause on it and charging twice as much, and it's no different.
Right.
Supplements, for example, that suddenly have the word menopause on are costing more, but when you look what's actually in them, it's a supplement. So be mindful of what you buy.
We call that snake oil. Just be mindful of all the snake oil, right? People just say everything cures whatever's hot in the moment. And I think you guys are ahead in that revolution, but I think we're coming up as well. I want to talk for a second about the thing that, I guess outside of sleep and energy, I think the thing that we hear about a lot is weight loss, right? It's so difficult post-menopause. And I think even people that have been thin all their life can suddenly have challenges with weight loss, even trying to keep at their consistent weight. What do you say to that? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a big, big topic. And I get asked that virtually every day. There are a lot of metabolic changes going on, and it affects every woman differently, but it is quite common that women will experience weight gain, and it tends to be around the tummy area, around the stomach area. And what happens is we go from like a pear shape to an apple.
Yeah.
So you can actually, what can happen sometimes is you don't necessarily put weight on, but your body fat distribution kind of shifts.
Yeah.
And people mistake that for weight, because of course, you suddenly got this tummy that you never had before, but there's so many different factors in the reasons why this is, and one of them is the decline in progesterone, in testosterone as well, and estrogen. What can you do? You need to kind of come at it from many different angles, but one thing that I would say to women is that it is not inevitable. You don't have to accept it, because there are many things that you can do. And I see all the time with my clients how successful it can be, but it can take a while. You really need to go back to basics. And again, I'm repeating myself, but eating in balance, carbohydrates, healthy fats, protein, make sure you're getting enough protein. That is key to weight loss. And when I say carbohydrates, you really want to be thinking about getting the majority of your carbohydrates from vegetables. A lot of people don't necessarily associate carbohydrates with vegetables, but vegetable contains a fair amount of carbohydrates. And, cutting back on things like potato, white rice, all of your kind of white products like white bread, because you don't actually need as much food as you get older and come into perimenopause. You can't eat as much as you ate when you were like in your 20s or 30s. So also thinking about like portion control, how much do I actually have on my plate?
Yeah.
One thing that I find works really well is to get people to use smaller plates, because you still, your plate's still full. So you think, oh, I've got a nice meal here. But because our dinner plates, I've actually got some plates that were my grandmother's, the dinner plates, and they're literally half the size of what today. They're like massive. Everything's increased, hasn't it?
Yeah.
There was a thing I think I saw about Coca-Cola, the size of the Coca-Cola bottle that it was like in the 70s compared to what it is now. It's like 4 times the size. So everything's increased like majorly. But, and then I find with not all clients, but a majority of clients, closing their eating window, so doing like intermittent fasting can be very helpful. And it's not about restriction, it's just eating under less hours in the day. So maybe not having breakfast, having your first meal at 11 o'clock or 11:30 in the morning, and then finishing eating at 7. That can be really beneficial for weight management.
Well, you're going to eat less, right? You're going to eat less in a smaller window.
Yeah.
In most cases. So it's going to cause you to eat less. I think that's a key thing to pick up on what you said, because I do think I think some people struggle to come to terms with the fact that you can't eat like you could eat. You have to really minimize what your intake is, and protein forward is always a good thing. But I do think that understanding it's a lot less than you used to be able to take in. I think that's important.
It's that I have my 80-20 rule, which if you do everything right 80% of the time, then you've kind of got your 20% to do what you want, have a glass of wine, eat some biscuits. But when you come into menopause, it goes down to 90-10.
90-10. Great.
You still got 10%.
Something to strive for. So what do you tell your women that you're working with around feeling okay in their body? Because this does impact so many women in middle age and beyond. And maybe they don't look like they always look or feel like they always felt. So how do you advise them on trying to keep their self-confidence up and their positivity around their self up when they're feeling so not great some of the time? Yeah,
it can get, some women really suffer through menopause with all the symptoms and everything. So you can absolutely start to think, oh, what's it all about? I feel exhausted, and, I maybe don't look like I used to or whatever. We work on mindset, and, obviously it's not easy when you're feeling terrible.
Yeah.
But really trying to focus on the fact that menopause is actually a natural transition. So it's not something that, we're not 20 anymore. I think a lot of women like think, oh, well, when I was younger, I was size really small. I was this. Well, you're not actually 20 anymore. And it's kind of accepting that this is a phase that you will go through. It's a totally natural phase. You might feel terrible some days, you might feel better some other days, but trying to not go down that like negative rabbit hole of oh, I feel terrible, because it's also shown in research, if you talk a lot about negative things, oh, I've got all these symptoms, oh, I feel terrible, then you will actually feel worse. So you have to, this sounds maybe easier said than done, but really try to change your self-talk. To be aware of what you're saying to yourself. Oh, look at me, and look at in the mirror, I look terrible, or these clothes don't fit anymore. Try to like reframe it by, I'm fabulous. I look amazing. Okay, these trousers don't fit anymore, but I've got another pair that still look great. It's reframing the way that you talk to yourself. It does actually have a huge, huge impact. And also one thing that I use with clients, which I use it on myself, I find it works very, very well is, if you're, say, for example, you're sat at your desk and you're just feeling terrible, you're feeling a bit stressed, or, think, oh, this day's not going very well. If you stand up and do something else, like, obviously it depends where you are, if you're in an office on your own, but do some like jumping jacks or do a few squats or just kind of jump up and down in the air or walk around your office. It totally changes your mindset.
I agree. Yeah.
Because your mind is affected by your bodily state, by your physiology. It works.
Yeah, I think it
Get
shifts
up and move them, do something else around it, shifts it.
Shifts the energy around you. Yeah. I think the other thing, two things, I think you hit on it, but perspective, right? You can always ask yourself, what other perspective can I have? So these pants don't fit. I look awful. Well, what other perspective could I have? And really challenge yourself on that, and getting into a practice of shifting it. And then I think gratitude, we talked about this, you and I talked about this before we got on the air, and we said, in this time where there's a lot going on, it's always great to ground yourself with what you're grateful for. But I will say, I'm going to put a little twist on it that I learned from Hillary Russo recently on my episode with her, and try to make those gratitude thoughts around yourself. So what are you grateful for in yourself? And I think that's a little trickier. I think we're not used to doing that. Many of us have now gotten into a practice of saying, we're grateful for a great day. We're grateful for our grandkids. We're grateful for the sunshine, whatever it is. I don't think we tend to go inward and say, we're grateful because we're compassionate, or we're grateful because we're a kind person, or we're grateful because we can actually get up and walk. I think that's a great practice to start doing, and probably really will help with that perspective shift.
Yeah, I love that.
So just a thought there.
Yeah.
Me too. I loved it when I heard it, because I don't think it's the way we naturally teach gratitude. It's anything, but turn it on yourself and have to find something every day about yourself. I think that's pretty neat. Maybe you'll even have to repeat the same thing many days, but that's okay. I think it's changing that self-talk track, right? So kudos to Hillary Russo for bringing that up. I love that.
Yeah, I like that.
So you've been doing this for a long time now, and I'm interested in, when you start these programs, you have this 21-day Reboot, this program that, you do as a group. Can you give us a couple of the key elements that you sort of pull out of people or get people started on, so that if they were trying to do something at home to really shift their perspective, shift how they're feeling today with their symptoms, like what are some things that pop up that they could start doing? I mean, the eating, which we talked about, is there anything else that stands out?
It's a fantastic program. It's only 21 days, but it's amazing what we get through in that. One other thing, I make them, that sounds terrible, but I ask them to go to bed earlier. So everybody goes to bed 20 minutes, at least 20 minutes earlier every day for these 21 days.
That's reasonable.
Some ladies find they can go to bed an hour earlier, but 20 minutes is what most people can manage. So that is something. And, that makes a hell of a difference for some people.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's not a lot. It's not a big ask.
No. I ask them to either eat their breakfast later or skip breakfast completely, or eat their evening meal earlier. So, we're opening or closing, should I say, the eating window. What else do we talk? We talk about so many things. When it comes to food, I ask them this is just for the 21 days. And obviously you get my support through this, but we cut out alcohol. Mm-hmm. We cut out gluten and caffeine.
Wow. All three.
Everybody embraces it and they do it, because the thing is, I'm not saying that you have to cut those things out for forevermore, but it's a reset. It's called reset and reboot. And, if you are, like we were talking about, suffering from inflammation and feeling terrible, you just need to take all these things away to give your body a chance to repair. And a lot of women, even now, I've been doing these courses for a while now, and they never start again, because they feel, even in 21 days, it makes such a difference to the way they feel. They don't want to go back to feeling like that. Yeah. So they don't introduce these things again.
Yeah, I love that. I actually hear that a lot now on the alcohol front. There's so many people, there's this, there's a movement, like there's so many people now going into the alcohol-free life. And again, I just never have really drank much, so it doesn't really impact me. I might have something once or twice a year if I'm at a celebration, but that's it. But for those that, really have it in their life a lot, I hear a lot of good information about how they feel once they kind of set that aside. So interesting. But I think your point too is it doesn't have to be forever, but it's reframing things and giving your body a reset. I love that. What have you seen? So 35 years is a long time to be in this space, right? Be in the wellness space. What's the thing that jumps out at you that's changed the most in that time frame?
Yeah. I mean, I was talking about menopause before anybody else was. And I know it's like we were saying, it's different depending on where you are in the world. And now there's a lot of momentum behind it, particularly in the United Kingdom, because a lot of celebrities have got behind it. So everybody's talking about it there. But one thing that I've seen, what would that be? I mean, there's so many. I think in the nutritional world, we've really, there's so much fantastic research that comes out now, and it's an area that moves very quickly, and we all of a sudden realize, okay, that wasn't what we should have been saying. This is correct now. I think probably like fat, that is a huge one, because I know that affects us as women as well, because as I've said, you need your fat to reduce inflammation. But the era that I grew up in, it was totally like everything was fat free.
Yeah.
Fat was like, oh no,
taboo.
Taboo, totally.
Yeah.
You're going to get heart disease, and it was awful, and it was terrible. Whereas now we see the benefits of healthy fats. It's down to the quality of fat that you're eating, particularly for women. We need it for hormone production. Cholesterol we need for hormone production, and all those wonderful fatty acids are so beneficial to our bodies. And even now, that it's hard to get rid of that stigma.
Yes,
it's very difficult.
Yes, I agree. And I think, honestly, that's one of the biggest challenges in this space is that the information is vast. And I think like any other piece of data, you can get it to say anything you want to, right? There's a study to support this side and a study to support this side. So the seed oils, some would say they're bad and some would say they're okay. Like it's really tricky to find the balance of really what works and what doesn't. And that always takes me back to a place of you have to try these things for yourself. And I think all of our bodies are different. And yes, there's core principles, but one thing that works for you might not work for me. And I think that's okay. I think trying to find that silver bullet, I'm sure you would agree, it doesn't exist. You talked about it with the supplements. Like you have to find your path. You have to try a little of this, try a little of that. For me and for people that I've watched, I think that works the best when you just try to kind of create your own path forward. There's so much information. It can be crazy.
Yeah, we're all very individual, aren't we? And exactly as you say, one thing works for some person, doesn't work for the other. And it must, when clients that I work with, it becomes overwhelming for them. There's so much information on social media, and everybody, like you say, has a different opinion. So it's like, what do you actually do?
Yes. That's the tricky part. And I even think about that myself when I'm bringing guests to the show, and I'm like, you have to strike this balance of this is another person talking about this thing. And will they, what are they going to say that's either the same or different? But I always land on, when I talk it through with myself, I always land on putting the information out there is never a bad thing. People have to make their own decisions, and they have to, be able to hear the information and figure out what it does for them. But I do think it can be overwhelming. I definitely think it can be overwhelming. But I think one of the most successful pieces of advice that I've heard and I've seen is around having community. And I think you do that with your groups and with your clinic, right? Having people to support you because then you can try different things, but you also are getting a lot of support around what you're doing. So I think that makes a difference.
Yeah, support is key. Absolutely. I see, for women to be successful, they need somebody there to support them. And there's nothing wrong with that. We all like support, don't we?
100%.
It's not about, you can tell somebody what to do. Okay, try this and this and this, but actually getting them to do it to a point where it becomes a habit and they'll put it into their daily life. That is the tricky thing.
100%. Yeah. Building that consistent practice. That is the tricky thing for sure. Well, this has been a great conversation. So what is on the horizon for you? More of this, another 35 years in the wellness space? Anything exciting going on?
Yeah, I'm actually written a book.
And it comes out?
It comes out hopefully in May. It's an adventure writing a book, that's for sure. It's been an amazing experience, but it takes time. But the deadline is May this year, so that's all very exciting. And it's the working title is How to Fix Your Menopause, a no-nonsense guide to looking good and feeling great. Because as I've said, I am also an esthetician, so it's looking at what happens with your skin, your hair, nails, all of that piece, as well as the inside piece during the menopause transition.
Well, I think that will get a lot of people interested because everybody's looking to feel better and look better. So good for you on that. I'd love to come back and chat about it when it's out. Where can people find you most? Where are you most active?
Yeah, I mean, the best place really is to go to my website, which is alisonbladh.com. That's ALISONBLADH.com. On there, I'm on all social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, all of them. If you could just find, if you just put in Alison Bladh, you'll find, all of that comes up. So, and I've also got if your listeners were interested, I have a free 7-day Reboot meal plan. It's kind of like a mini meal plan from my programs, and it just gives you some ideas of what you can eat through 7 days, like the tips that we've been talking about to get you going. It's got a shopping list, all of that there. So I can send you the link to that if anyone's interested.
I would love that. And I know these guys love meal plans, and they love, because they don't have to think about it themselves, right? If somebody gives them the idea, it gets you thinking when you feel overwhelmed and not know where to start. So that's great. I would love the link, and we'll put it out there, and we'll put all the other links to your socials and your website as well. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Message in the Middle with Marianne. If you enjoyed the podcast, please take a minute to share it and write a review, as it helps bring new listeners to our audience. If you'd like to keep the conversation going between episodes, please join us at Facebook group Message in the Middle with Marianne.